blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts peeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have...
Hello everyone, hope everyone's doing okay today. This is another episode of Secular Activism Unfiltered. I am your host, Detroit Atheist Queen, Kelly. And we're doing good. It's not part of doing the Lord's work. You just be good. And I have a special guest today. His name is Infidel64. He is a former ACA host and helped on different shows. And now him and Cynthia McDonald, one of my very good friends, has gotten together and has started The Roots Matter, which is a political, editorial, Christian apologetic show. And they have different shows throughout the week. So if you're not subscribed to them, you need to help and do that as well. So without further ado, I'm bringing on my guest, Infidel64.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming. So the first question I like to ask my guest is, were you ever religious?
Well, I was raised very religious. I was raised in a very legalistic sect who believed that if you didn't speak in tongues, you didn't go to heaven. So for me, I was always hellbound. I believed, I bought into the lies, but until my late 20s, I just pretty much, well, around 6 or 7, I realized I deserved hell and I was a terrible person. And so I just leaned into it and figured, you know what? I might as well enjoy this the best I can. So I just leaned into enjoying whatever I could. And if it was sin, well, that just made it a bonus. It wasn't until my late 20s that I gave it a shot. And then it was a couple years after that that I realized that it was completely a lie.
So how old were you when you deconstructed?
I was in my early 30s. Now,
Okay.
I definitely believed it. Now, even though I didn't live it, I read the Bible cover to cover first time at 13. So I had read it many times, but of course, with that rose-colored lens of this is true. And of course, the problem is that as soon as you take those glasses off and you read it, and that's what happened. I realized that, and well, then everything fell apart, really.
Besides, was there anything else that you deconstructed from during your leaving religion? Because I know I did as well.
Without a doubt, and that's the thing that you don't realize at the moment when you deconstruct, because you think that okay, and coming from a religious background, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of religious people make. They think that okay, I'm going to deconstructing is really kind of like changing churches. You know, instead of Baptist, I'm Presbyterian now. But it's really not at all like that, because it's not a matter of switching brands. You look at and re-examine so many things and you realize that the reason you believed them was because of the Bible. And once you take that and you reprocess it, you're like, oh, no, okay, that was completely not true. So it impacts pretty much every part of your life. Um, now I wouldn't say that I did it because of religion, but of course, one thing that you and I touched on briefly in another conversation was deconstructing out of being active in no other way to put it, the white supremacy movement. And so, but I wouldn't say religion had a direct tie to it. But the truth is that when it comes down to it, just about everything tied down to religion. And it's kind of hard to get away from the fact that even though it wasn't directly involved, this idea that because there is a certain level of smug superiority that's kind of hard baked into religion, that if you're in the end club, you really are a little bit better than everyone else. And so just having that type of mentality that we can rate people as being better or worse than us kind of opens us up to all kinds of bad beliefs, including white supremacy.
Now, Seth Ambrose Apostate was a Christian nationalist type and had a lot of the ideology that you had, that superior race and stuff like that. Um, and so I guess I'm proud in a sense that you guys were able to leave that belief and that thought process away, So how did you get started with the Nazi? I don't know what did you
Yeah,
call it?
you can call them that. I mean, because at the end of the day, um, I got involved. I was just I was raised more of a what you would now call a country club Republican. I thought I was a Republican by the time I was 9, literally. So that was pretty much baked into there. Reagan was 3 steps away from godhood. Maybe
Oh
4.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so with that type of mentality, in the late 80s, there was a guy named David Duke who hit the scene in Louisiana, and I was raised in New Orleans.
yeah.
And I
Definitely.
and I
Yeah.
started, yeah, and I started listening to him. And if you're preconceived to not having the skills of critically looking at something, because it's easy to say that this percentage of black men commit this percentage of crime, but they're only this percentage of the people. And it's easy to take that statistic and run with it, completely ignoring the fact of number one, if you target black men, you're going to, guess what, that's who you're going to end up arresting. So and all the other social aspects that I'm not even relevant at this point. But when you start buying into this type of rhetoric that tells you that these people or this person or this group of people is a problem, I started listening to him. Then I started getting involved with his campaign. And then it just kind of went from there because, well, his campaign was really my opening and education to, who George Lincoln Rockwell was, the founder of the American Nazi Party. And then, of course, White Aryan Resistance and other groups and people who felt that way about not only uh, the whole white thing, but I mean, it went out beyond just white supremacy. It was, Christian identity, identity Christians, and that's a whole other weird jump off point. But yeah, I just kind of got involved, and it's kind of like anything else. If you continue to surround yourself with those people, and you continue to surround yourself with people who think that way, and that's really all the information that's coming in is through that type of mentality. That's pretty much where you end up. And at this point, I think that there
Okay.
we go. I was a
Yeah.
little worried.
Sometimes I like to have people on the stage by themselves so that I can get the full attention of my guest, and I'm not overshadowing them. But yeah. So the next question I have is, what does secular activism mean to you beyond just rejecting religion?
Well, and I think that that's one of those things that I tend to walk out of my house a walking billboard. You know, if I don't have, thank God I'm an atheist or born again atheist, or, you know, sometimes I ask myself, what would God do? And then I drown everybody. Um, so, you know, and those type of things. And I'm looking for those conversations. And it's really very interesting because you do tend to get two very big reactions. And one is people look like they're constipated. And then the other one, people laugh and just immediately strike up a conversation of like, yeah, that. I've had people yell across the parking lot, yeah, me too. I feel that way too. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad you do. And you know, and it's really, that's part of the normalization. People need to understand that, like you know, anybody goes out and we do work and we meet people and we do things and we just interact with people in our daily lives. It's good for people to be reminded that we're just normal people, and that's one thing. I also, of course, obviously do Roots Matter, and I also, since I moved here in Alamogordo, I started a humanist group because I'm in a red
Okay.
dot in a blue state, so I just wanted people to realize, hey, we're out here. You know, there are people who
Okay.
aren't religious.
So if anybody is in this area, you can join the feminist group.
Absolutely.
Okay. I was gonna put some plugs in for you in the chat in a second. Um, so how do you respond? And I get this a lot when people say you're attacking my religious liberties.
Well, I put that adjacent to, once again, I'm going to bring race into this issue, so I guess I'm playing the white card. No, seriously though, um, I hear people saying, you know, you're attacking me when you start saying that some of the terrible things that have happened in our past and the systemic problems that we're facing even now regarding race. It's really the same thing. And what it is, it's a loss of privilege. I'm not attacking the person's religion, but there's an expectation that I'm going to accept their Christianity. There's an expectation that not only should I accept it, but if I don't, I just need to be quiet and treat it as normal because that's how we do it here. And that type of thing is really, once again, it's just a loss of privilege. They're being threatened because they're losing their expectation of an advantage. That's really all it is.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. I was about to put the link in, but Aunt Drew is faster than me. Okay. Um, many people walk away from religion. What caused you to get into the activist part of it?
Well, it was somewhat impulsive, but not really. First, I deconstructed. I was okay with that. I was loud about it because, well, I'm a loud person and I'm obnoxious, and so it's just how I'm going to be. And then that was it. And life goes on, and we do our thing. And then I got really sick, and well, frankly, I almost died.
Oh
So
my.
when I got better, and I saw the opportunity to do something, it was like, you know what? I should probably do that. And really, so I guess it was, I, you know, and hate to sound like a stereotype, but almost dying kind of gave me my coming to Jesus moment or my road to Damascus moment. And I say, you know what? Maybe I should start doing something else and start reaching out and seeing what I can do, because you know, and this is one of the things that I also, there's a weekly protest here in Alamogordo, you know, Trump, ICE, you know, the whole thing. And I go to it most weeks. Every once in a while, I'll miss one, but you know, and one of the things that I remind myself with doing things like that is that sometimes we do things not because we're going to change the world. You know, and then this goes back, actually, I want to say it was a Methodist minister during the Vietnam War, and he was asked, because he was out there holding a candlelight vigil by himself at night, and somebody's like, you really think that's going to change the policy of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, and what they're doing in Vietnam by you holding a silly little candle out there? And he said, no, I don't do this to change the world. I don't do this to change the government. I do this because it does, so it doesn't change me. And for me, sometimes it's about being out there. You may not change the world. Hopefully you'll impact somebody, but if nothing else, it's because you're not allowing certain things to be normalized within you. And so regardless of whether success is today, tomorrow, or it's 10 years from now, that still doesn't change how important it is for me as a person to do whatever I can do right now. And with that attitude, that's why I keep doing what I'm doing.
That's great words. I mean, I feel the same way, like people say, well, that's not going to make a difference. But I know with me, like I tell everybody, I'll end up one day falling asleep, waking up to Penn and Teller bullshit being on the air. And that was what woke me up. I was like, what the hell? Then after that, the algorithm started playing more and more atheist stuff after that. And then, but now I know I'm here. So that one thing sparked me.
Yeah.
Golly's granny talks about how she was driving past the art protest. And that's how next minute, that she's here doing what she's doing now. Full blown atheist. So that does matter. One person
Oh, without a
making a
doubt.
change, it really is important. Some people were never gonna change, but if I wish everybody was an atheist, but I'm not gonna force anybody to do it though. It's your choice.
Yep.
Because I will be at a events doing tabling at different festivals or whatever, and they'll be like, "Are you trying to change us?" No, this is where I'm at, what position that I'm doing, and if you want to sit down and talk to me and listen to what I have to say, and that's your decision, but you're not forced to do anything.
Well, what's funny with me is that what actually triggered me in the actual deconstruction itself was I was raised in a what's called a oneness, a not a Trinitarian group. And so it was very common to have arguments with other Christians who were Trinitarians. So I was having a discussion with the Trinitarian online, and I was throwing my verses out and they were tossing their verses out. I kind of felt, looking back on it, like we were the gods of Olympus throwing Bible verses at each other like, lightning bolts. But neither one of us were really listening to each other. We both knew what we were going to say. We knew our verses. I knew his verses. Nobody was going over anything new. We were just talking past each other. And for the first time, it struck me that one of us was clearly wrong, but for the first time, I realized we could both be wrong. And that was what stuck in my mind. And at that point, excuse me, I went back and I started Genesis. And Genesis wasn't that hard for me to get past because I knew that Adam and Eve wasn't literal. I knew that as a small child. I wasn't raised young earth, even though most of our sect was young earth. I wasn't young earth. So I was past all that kind of stuff. And my dad had a geology background. So I knew the flood was not a literal event. I thought that was a localized event. So there's a lot of things I could rationalize off as not real. But then when I started to get to Exodus, and there's some things there that these are literal stories of what the Bible's telling you is okay and not okay to do. And you start reading these rules and guidelines. And I knew I was in trouble pretty quick. It didn't take long. And by the time I was 3/4 through Exodus, I'm like, I've been hacked. Now, I didn't say anything to anyone. It was a few months later that I had sat my wife down and I'm like, well, I've been thinking some things, but if I tell you, we're going to have to get divorced. Because to me, I just could not imagine staying married with being an atheist and a believer. And then maybe a year later, she told me that she didn't believe. So I was like, oh, okay. Remember that thing I didn't want to tell you? That's it. So That was pretty much that, and
Oh,
then that
that's
was starting
cool.
of the process. So, that made that a lot easier than it could have been. But yeah, really, it was another believer that actually got me motivated down that path to realize that it was all a lie.
I wish that would it would took me, because I remember I was part of the International Church of Christ, and so we had to, share all your faith, go to different people, share your faith with so many people, get all your family, all your friends. Anytime we would have an outing, we're supposed to be hanging out. We're supposed to even share our faith even then. We can always other time. But anyway, so Jehovah's Witnesses like coming to your door, knock on your door and stuff like that. So I would find time to talk with them, do the little lightning bolt like you said earlier. And I remember proudly coming to talking to the people in the church and group, my discipleship group. That's what I did. First thing they asked me was it were you doing this with a lady or a man or a woman? And I was like, a guy. Oh no, definitely never do that. You are to remain silent in front of a man. Yeah. So they like put me down real quick.
Wow.
But yeah, that's what happened with me. And I was like, but I think I was getting to them. We don't care. We don't care what man it is. You are not to speak in front of a man. Basically, kind of like high and by, but not preach to teach a man. You're not to teach a man.
Yeah,
Because I remember, yeah.
that's one of the weird things to me with the UPC organization that I came out of, because I mean they're very patriarchal. But in some churches, they have women preachers and even a few women pastors. So it is one of those things that I never understood. I mean, wasn't objecting to it, but it just seemed like with the group that I mean, because you couldn't wear pants, couldn't wear short sleeves, couldn't wear makeup, no piercings. Uh, I mean, when I say couldn't cut your hair, I don't mean you couldn't trim an inch off of it. So, I mean, it was really very, very top down patriarchal. So, I don't know how they rationalize that. And of course, there was a lot of pushback in a lot of circles because I'm sure in most churches that was considered, yeah, one of those, well, I guess whatever their version back then of whatever woke would have been.
Yeah. They really wasn't like, when I was with International Church, they weren't really in like no pants because they were like, there's pants made for women. So they was like, long as it's women made pants, it was okay. But if you were men pants, that was men clothes, that was an issue. But if you were a woman wearing women pants, that was fine. Like India said, they probably had frizz and split in here. Exactly. I have split ends now. I gotta get cut. Oops. But
You're going to
like,
hell.
yeah, because I remember one time I went to visit one of my friend churches and to visit my church. I was like, okay. When I walk in, the first thing one of the deacons or somebody that was doing this talking in the pulpit pointed at me and said, "How dare you come in this sanctuary looking like that?"
Wow.
And I had on, they were like kulaks. So they were shorts, but long, like below my knees and flared. So if you didn't really pay attention to them, you thought it was a skirt. And it was a suit.
Well,
And he just went down, and I was just like, what? I just walked out and went home. I was
yeah,
like,
well, I
I'm
mean,
not going to deal with that.
yeah, that's, my, yeah, I'm a pastor's son. So my dad never preached against things. Honestly, I don't know why. I look back and I'm just more clueless every day on what he was doing in that particular organization. Um, but I know that there were other churches that we would go to, especially after my dad got sick and resigned. There were churches out there where kids in the schools were more scared of coming home with bad grades because their pastor was going to put them in front of the church and berate them than they were their own parents. Now, honestly, I don't think you should be afraid of your parents on a grade. I understand your parents will be mad and you don't want that sometimes. But yeah, I mean, your pastor going up and berating children in front of the whole church. But I mean, he even called one of his relatives up and told her that, because she got married on the side and he didn't approve, he actually told her that because she did that, that's why she had a kid born with a disability. So, yes. Now, understand this pastor is now dead, but his son took in the church after him, filled in the family business, but he's not at the church anymore either. Now, my brother-in-law goes to that church still, but that pastor's son, he's in prison for molesting a minor. But it didn't get my brother-in-law to leave the church.
Yeah, I have a friend, Jezebel, who left the Episcopal Episcopal Church. But anyway, she talks about how the molestation went on in her church, and nobody did anything, and they're still sitting there like nothing happened, and she was one of the ones who left. Her story is very impelling, and I like everybody to hear it because it's very important. And I'm so glad that she's not speaking out about it. But yeah, um, like I was in the international church I talked about earlier. It was like one of the high position people in the church also was molesting children. Well, maybe teenagers, but still the same thing.
Uh, they're
But
children.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. And that, it was like, are you serious? And so he ended up marrying one of his victims' sisters, older sisters. And they knew what he did.
Well,
I did not know that when it first happened, till I ended up running into the sister, the one of the victims, and that's when she told me, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you in a long time." I've been at the church then, and she told me. That's why she left the church. I was like, "Oh man, I did not know that."
and that really is, and this really ties into the whole religious thing, is what we don't think about when we're in it, is that top down structure, and that what we are taught as forgiveness and all these other things just create an opportunity for someone to take advantage of children. We're really just, it's like lambs of the slaughter. We're just, by giving this trust, because if you say, oh, I'm a, if I walk into a church and my hair doesn't look right, and I look kind of weird, I'm not going to immediately get that trust. But if I walk into a church and I got my nice suit on and I got my hair right and I do everything and I make the right motions and I say the right word, it takes no time. And guess what? I'm youth pastor. And unfortunately, in a lot of churches, there's not even any background check or anything like that. Now, in some churches, they are starting to do that. But the truth is, even those things aren't going to tell you a lot of things about people, because really, this is about just giving a level of undue trust to people because they're a man of God. And that just allows people to be taken advantage of. It allows people to be taken advantage of as children. It allows people to be taken advantage of financially. It allows people to settle for social discontent that they shouldn't, that they should step up. It allows people to excuse their own bad behavior towards other people. It's just really all around. It's just a full package. To me, if people deconstruct and they still have some God belief or whatever, and it doesn't impact them, and they go to church on Sunday and they have a social group, That's not what kills me. What kills me is when they go to work on Monday and they treat people differently, or when they go to the polls on Tuesday and they vote people and they say that people shouldn't have a right to exist because I don't exist inside the box that you exist within. And
Mhm.
so for me, look, and not and I know this is going to come across condescending, and it is a little bit, but look, if you want to go cosplay whatever you want to on Sunday, if you want to cosplay a good person, I'm down with it, as long as on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, cosplay a good person then too. But when you cosplay somebody on Sunday morning and then you go and you undertip your waiter on Sunday afternoon for dinner, and then you go around, play around, and just do this as a joke, and you treat people like shit. No, you got to deconstruct out of that. That's the harmful part. It's not about what you do on Sunday, just going to church. It's about what you do when you're not in church. And unfortunately, church tends to make that worse and not better.
Because some servers say that the people in the church Sunday, church service people, are the worst people. They be the most rudest customers.
Look, my mother in law will run somebody like a dog as a server and not even make it to 10% on the tip. It's like, no.
Yeah, I used to be a server back in the day,
It's
like in
like,
the
no.
90s. And I remember some of the worst ones was the little old white ladies. They was the worst. They didn't want a tip. Then they only wanted the salad bar. All we got was salad bar. But I'm sitting there giving you drinks. I'm still
Yeah.
serving. I'm giving you drink, clean up your plates and stuff. But they didn't feel they had to tip me because they only had the salad bar.
Hmm.
Can we have more napkins? That's serving you.
Yes.
But yeah, I when I saw a group of old white ladies coming, because I did like lunchtime, I was like, "Oh, you got that table." Because at first I was excited the first time because it was like 20 of them. I was, oh, it'll be a nice tip. Because, but then they ended up exactly numerous soup hotter. But then they would come in and almost I was excited. They got the salad bar. So I'm like, but I've had people that got salad bar and still tip me nice, but not them. Okay. Would you say your activism is more in person or online? Or maybe a combination of both?
Yeah, I would definitely say that right now it's a balance. As I said, I pretty much and I'm in a small town. Right where I'm at is about around 30,000 people. It's a pretty isolated area, and it's relatively Christian. So that's one of the reasons why I tend to wear some of the things I wear, just to kind of get people knowing. And but also I think that one advantage is it's kind of a double-edged sword of a small town like this is you get to know people and you get to see people and you get to recognize them that you wouldn't in a large city. And so it definitely very much there's very much a roots level, no pun intended, um, interaction and activism, especially say with the humanist group here in Otero County that I've started. That's very much trying to get people organized, and it really it's all about creating that normalized space for people. Uh, because as I mentioned, we do a lot of protesting and things like that. Me personally, and some of the others, and I just feel like that it's a good opportunity to have a safe space for people who don't necessarily want to get involved with what religion tries to sell you when you try to get involved with it. So it's both. It's the roots matter and putting some roots down here in Alamogordo. But um,
See anything else?
no, go ahead.
Okay. Um, was there a person or organization that helped you along your way with your deconstruction?
You know, in a way, not actively, but I will say that I moved to Austin in the early 2000s. And at the point that I moved to Austin, Um, the ACA Atheist Experience was on public broadcast. It was actually on TV. And so I ran across it then, and I was still more or less a believer. And I was like, who are these clowns? What the hell are these clowns? But I kept listening. And then I moved on. And, but I would have to say that it would be impossible for me not to think that some of what they said wasn't still working in the back of my mind to help trigger that, oh shit, maybe we're both wrong moment I talked about earlier. So I do think that there was definitely an impact there. But when I did it, there just wasn't a lot of social media and the things that there were now. Somewhere along that process, people like Dawkins and Harris came out. Dawkins never impressed me, so I just kind of, yeah, okay, whatever. I admit Harris, his book on free will did catch my eye, and I do agree with some of those things. I find him problematic in some ways, but yeah, I definitely would say that I did it probably out there in the wild on my own. I felt a little annoyed at myself that I didn't try to reach out. I just kind of kept it quiet that year, and that was probably the year I really should have talked to more people. But
Yeah, I was silent about 5 years or so. So I've just been active since two. Well, no, actually, I'm just not publicly active in more public space starting last year in October. I started the group in Detroit 2023, so 3 years ago. But I was just in my own area. I didn't really do any kind. I helped Mandisa backstage different things and prospects, but I would not be on camera at all. So this is new to me since October. But here I am now. You see our friend Scott is here.
yep. Hey, Scott. Scott's. I met Scott through the ACA. He's our DM for our Dungeons and Dragons game, which hopefully we'll get around to
Yeah.
playing before too long
One
again.
day I haven't played like years. I don't think it was on. I think I played it was like a board game or we it was in person. I never played online. So I don't even know how the hell that works. Um so if you could go back to your former self as a child, um what would you say what would be the first thing you would say to them?
Well, and it's hard to say, and I've agonized over this type of scenario before because it really is. If you really could give that one thing, what would it be? And when I look at who I am now, and I look at all the really bad beliefs that I've deconstructed out of, I have to tell myself that if I take any of those bad beliefs out of my experience, I cease becoming me in so many ways. So
Yes.
if I guess if I could tell myself anything, it would probably not to be so hard on yourself. Because I am definitely am to this day my own worst critic.
Oh,
So
me too. I still am today. I am like, hey, you did so good. I'm thinking of all the things in my head that I did wrong.
yep.
I have very low self esteem, very low. I'm always thinking the worst of me, and it is so hard to change. And everybody is like, "Oh, you're doing good." No, how could you say that? I did this and this and this wrong, and it's little stuff that I noticed because it's me, and people don't even think about.
Yep.
But I understand.
And you mentioned not being on camera too recently. Last October, my oldest daughter and her family moved here. I got them there here as well. So it's six of us. No, we're not literally in the same household. They're a 7-minute walk from me, but we eat
Okay.
meals together. It's a very interchangeable family as far as interaction. But I've been trying to talk my daughter-in-law into coming on, and eventually I will. But yeah, I get it, and especially you talk about self-esteem. and that's one thing that religion kind of hard bakes that you're a piece of shit. You're garbage and you don't deserve anything unless God gives it to you. And
Exactly.
even when you deconstruct from those beliefs and you realize God's not real, that doesn't mean you take decades of you're a piece of shit and just throw that off like a coat. And I think that once again goes back to one of those things that religion is so harmful that we don't even think about, is those things that it's just part of the religion.
Yeah, like that's why I started my other show, Sovereign Intimacy, because it deep diving in a lot of different taboo topics on sexuality, because growing up in a purity culture, thinking basically you're not supposed to do anything unless it's to please your husband and God. That's a woman's stance on it. So now do what you want. Two consensual adults. I don't care how many
Yeah,
it is, but it's
this is
consensual
consensual.
adults. Do what you like to make yourself happy, and that's my stance on it now. And so I'm talking to people who maybe once was in that situation, or they're living lifestyles that's not the normal. I'm saying it in quote unquote. So that's who I am now with that, and that belief, and feeling ashamed because I didn't relationships I had didn't last. Had children, when you're not with the father anymore. I wish I could have been, but either be with them or get beat. So take your pick. I could have stayed in that relationship, and I had a friend who was unalived by her partner, husband, and that's the reason why I left mine. I was like, no, I don't want to be her. And it hurts me so bad because I really miss my friend so much. But, you know, she thought she did what was right, marrying a pastor, associate pastor. And that's what he did. And the church covered it up for years. But that's neither here nor there. That's not why we're here today. Okay. So, what is a flaw within the community that we don't talk enough about?
Well, I think that one thing that we don't talk about enough, and you mentioned your show about essentially taboo sexuality. I think that's a really good topic that is vastly underexplored. So let me just go ahead and touch and say that would be one right there. But it sounds like you got that handled. But and I do think that one of the flaws is I think that sometimes we allow ourselves to do a little bit of an echo chamber, and we don't talk enough about the positivity of what atheism has brought to our lives. Because while being an atheist doesn't change me in any way, other than I won't get up on a Sunday morning and go to church, or Wednesday afternoon, what that deconstruction, that becoming the atheist that I am now, and admittedly, the group that I work with, founded is we're humanists, and I am a humanist, and I find that a better label as far as me as a person and who I am, because I got there through becoming an atheist. There's no way to get around that. Now, some people are humanists who aren't atheists, and I'm power to them. If you can find a way to value people and didn't have to deconstruct through some of the terrible things I did, great. I'm happy for you. But I think that it's people need to be reminded sometimes that our lives have become better because we don't believe. And I think that better without belief is something that I think that we probably should hammer home a little more, because sometimes I think we do sound like the angry atheist, and sometimes we are angry for good reasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we sound like the atheists who just like we hear about the Christian who got on the drugs and then God saved him and all that story. There's stereotypes for our side too. And I think that one of the ones that we really would serve a purpose for is just reminding people the positivity, how much better life is, how much better relationships with other people are, just how much better of a person we can be without God.
Yeah, I've been so much better in my life. I can talk about the next person, but and I've been through a lot, and I'm not saying that it's been gravy and everything. I've had the problems or something, but I it's weird. Like where I used to worry about everything, and now I'm just like, you know what? If it happens, it happens. That's my attitude now. But I was in a religious state. Everything I was like, if I can't do that. I'm going to hell. I can't do this. I'm going to hell.
It's funny you
Now,
say that because that's exactly what I was thinking. Because the way I was raised, that if you're in a car accident and you're about to crash and you go, "Oh shit," well, you just cursed, you're going to hell. So look, I mean, no pressure, no pressure. Hell's waiting for you, though. Jesus loves you. Of course, it's completely psychotic. And yeah, as you said, the Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust. And I will take that as truth, because the bottom line is things happen, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Christian, things are going to happen in your life that are going to be difficult. There's no path to easy street. If there was, if then okay, then be what you're going to be to do that. But reality is different. However, the way I'm able to interact with people, judge people, people treat me, I've just had a better experience interacting with people in the secular community. I've had better experiences with friends. Nobody's perfect. They're assholes in our community too. But the bottom line is my life being around people who care about other people. It's so strange. Surround yourself with people who care about people for being people and not for what they can do for you, or if they live up to a standard, if they're holy enough or righteous enough, but they're just people who treat people decently and are good and helpful. It's weird. Your life gets better when you get the problems out and you get the people who go, "Yeah, that's cool. We're here for you." It's so weird.
I mean, I'm surrounded by assholes. Ember. Yeah. Yeah. So, have you lost any family or friends because of your stance deconstructing?
Well, my relationship with my extended family, and by that I don't mean my dad died when I was young, 20, almost 22. So I was still a believer when he died. My mom, it bothered her, but no, she honestly, to my mom, I think church was more a place to go and sing songs and clap your hands and raise your hands and pray, and just the performative aspects she enjoyed. She wasn't a Trumper.
Oh, that's
So
good.
yeah, my dad back in the '80s hated Trump, so I don't know. Maybe he was an influencer and I didn't know it. But seriously though, um, my my mom, my excuse me, my wife's family though. My wife's brother was my best friend growing up. We don't speak. As I said, he went to the church, still going to the church with the child molester. Um, my wife's mother, there's a very strained relationship there. It got worse during COVID because we wouldn't go to her birthday party in peak COVID, and so that made her mad. But the bottom line is that also my youngest goes by Gabriel, and she refuses to call Gabriel the right name. Absolutely will not under any circumstance call her Gabriel. So and
Does
she's
she
got
use a
this thick.
nickname or something?
Well, the
Like
bottom line
Gabe
is,
or something? But yeah, I
well,
understand like people, yeah.
but the thing is that Gabriel, when born, um, went by was assigned. We gave Gabriel a French variation of Gabriel as her name. And then when Gabriel got older, Gabriel said, well, came out gender fluid. I'm Gabriel.
Okay.
So
Okay, well,
we
yeah.
started calling, yeah, Gabriel. All right, no problem. Cool. Life goes on. Two letters less to write when I write your name. Not a problem. Not a big deal. But for my in-law, whose name is Dolores, who goes by Lori, and insists you spell the name Lori with an E at the end. That's how picky she is with her own nickname, but she won't even call her own granddaughter Gabriel. And so
Wow.
there's essentially not a relationship there.
Yeah.
And now we're in New Mexico, and she's still in Texas, so even less. But she can't even send a present in the mail and put the right name on it, and it's just so childish. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's how
that's
people are.
crazy. Yeah, that's like when I okay, this person, I'm about to get rid of this person because they're getting on my nerves. Like, what are you? What are they talking about? Hold on. There are only two genders, and black women on average 185 pounds. Like, what are you talking about? We ain't talking nothing about that bullshit on this show. We have a nice conversation. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing with me. Like, when I won't say my nickname, but I have a nickname that they call me. Not a nice nickname. But, so some of my family still call me that. And sometimes, even when they comment on Facebook, they say that nickname.
I and I guess that kind of goes back to the people you surround yourself with. We can't choose our family. We
You always
choose who
gonna be
we
that
surround
to me.
ourselves with. Yeah, well, maybe I not to you then. You know what I'm saying? It's just mind-boggling to me, and it really all boils down to, you mentioned the person with the two genders. The bottom line is this: even if you firmly believe that it's not the case, but let's move past that for the moment. Even if you firmly believe that, what harm does it possibly do to me as an individual to say, okay, you want to be called that? Okay, that's your pronouns. Cool, not a problem. Resolve. That's it. I just don't care. I mean, the alternative is, and it does make me wonder about people. When I go to the bathroom in a public space, I am worried about things like, is there going to be toilet paper? Is it going to be clean? How's it going to smell? Nobody's going to come next to me and sit in the stall next to me and blow that shit up, right? Those are the things that I'm worried about when I'm sitting on the toilet in the bathroom in the public. Why are you worried about people's genitals that much? I just don't get the whole argument. And that's ignoring the fact that, honestly, we're talking about a very small portion of the population. And this whole women aren't safe in bathrooms because men might dress up as women and go into women's bathrooms. First, let me tell you a secret. If they're
They're
going to
just as
break
the
the law,
man.
they can do it anyway. And you started it out with men. Men, yes, we're a threat. Don't try to deny it. Yes, we absolutely are a threat. And any man who thinks you're not, you should check yourself, because we are so ingrained in entitlement that oftentimes we don't even see when we're being a threat. So, yes, if there's a man dressed up in the bathroom harming women, that's already illegal. That's illegal in so many ways, it's not even funny. But I can assure you, no teenage boy is saying, you know what? I can get a trophy that I can put on my wall if I start dressing up as a girl and go to school, and I can join the girls' school swim team. No, doesn't work that way. That's not how reality works. Because if you think it does, then you never went to school, because kids can be mean as hell.
Yeah, my youngest, non-binary, but that's not the story. So they went this when they was in kindergarten. They're grown now, and so they was in the bathroom. So a little boy tried to go in the bathroom behind them, Like, and it was one stall. And so she ended up hitting them. And the teacher ended up calling us about the. So my mom went up to the school because my mom was a teacher, retired teacher at the time. She, and so was like, what seemed to be the problem? So told my mom that my daughter hit the student, another student. Well, why would you do that, Kanae? And well, they came in the bathroom behind me. And you didn't see his issue with that? She didn't put his hands on him for you to go into the bathroom. So yeah. So that was kindergarten. When I had somebody come in the bathroom bother me, it was not nobody dressed as a woman. They was dressed as a man. It was just they themselves. So
Yeah, if people have ill intent, they're going to do that,
they're gonna do it,
and
yeah.
and making life harder for marginalized people under the guise of making women safer does actually the opposite, because now we're seeing, and I'm not trying to differentiate that it's good or bad, but we're seeing people who are assigned female at birth go into bathrooms and not look woman enough. And
Exactly.
we're having men come into bathrooms to tell women who were assigned female at birth, you don't look woman enough, and prove to me you're a woman. What are we doing? It makes no sense. You're instead of enabling women and empowering women, once again, who's paying the price? Women.
Yeah. Exactly. It's always women. And like I always said, it's not a lot of times it's not about that. It's about control. That's why they trying to do the the pro birth and all. They don't care about the
Mhm.
children. They don't care about the women. They only care about controlling something they have no reason to control. That's what it's all about
Yep.
now.
It's not pro life, it's pro forced birth.
Has there ever been an event since becoming secular that you attended that made you feel uncomfortable? And how did you get out of that situation?
Well, probably the most uncomfortable event that occurred, um, actually two, but both of them were funerals.
Okay.
One being my dad's best friend growing up. He was another pastor who also happened to be my wife's childhood pastor growing up. For years, he said that God was going to come back before he died. And so, somewhat sarcastically, I went to his funeral 500 miles away. And because I was like, well, this day was never going to come. So, I guess I should be here to see it. And so then I watched him be buried, and I saw his family, who I felt bad for because I've known them most of my life. And then next morning, I went to church. Remember that church I was telling you about with the guy who shamed the kids and later the child molester? Well, the pastor, the older one, was still alive then, and he gets up there and talks about how he went to the funeral, the same funeral of another pastor, because he's a pastor. They're both pastors, and went to the funeral, and then he talks about how his two daughters looked like Jezebels because they didn't live up to the church. They weren't in church. They had cut hair and makeup and maybe even earrings. So
Oh,
he's talking, yes.
the
And at this point,
audacity.
the pastor's standing in front of the church talking
No,
about
I'm
how,
saying how audacity them having earrings in their ear.
yeah, I know, how dare they? They're sure. You know what? I might have even seen an elbow.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
so it was pretty bad. Now, so he gets up there and does that. Now, I got to admit, and this is part of the story I don't always tell, but I had warrants out on me at that point, so I was illegal. So I couldn't get up and confront him. So what I did is I sent a registered letter to him the next day, and he didn't respond to it. But I couldn't believe that my brother-in-law, who knew these two women better than I did, they were his friends growing up, sat there and just let his pastor talk that way about these women. Now that's one. The other was my mom's funeral. Um, my brother-in-law is the one that preached it because, well, I got him for free. And it was a religious style funeral for her. It was pretty much the funeral she wanted, and it was uncomfortable because it served absolutely zero purpose for me, because we hear all this better place shit and all this, and immediately when I heard people tell me she's in a better place, I wanted to say, because she was cremated, so she wasn't actually physically there. So I was like, oh, you're telling me she likes laying on a concrete or a stainless steel um, slab out in the corners right now? She likes that? Okay. But I didn't, because I knew it would be counterproductive. But the truth is, it was a very painful event, because I went through a funeral, and I'm an only child. So at the end of the day, I'm the closest relative sitting in that building, and the whatever we had going around us, the performance we had going around us, it happened to be in the same church I got married in the second time, by the way. Um, it was a complete waste of time for me. It
Yeah.
served no purposes for me as a person. So I drove 500 miles to do something that didn't serve any purpose for me, and then the drive back. And yeah, that was awkward and uncomfortable, but I did it because I knew it's what she wanted.
Yeah, it's like, hey, when I go to the funerals and they don't really even focus on the person, talks about God and Jesus and being saved.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's not even honoring the person. And I be sitting there so irritated. Sadly, one of my childhood friends, well, he was a brother of my ex friend, but know him because well, he saved to save a woman that was getting robbed and getting stabbed and was unalived last week. About to get ready to go to a funeral soon. So that's been on my mind. Like, damn, like he didn't really deserve that. He was trying to help somebody. I don't know what happened to the other person, to the lady, but the guy who was doing it ran off, and they've yet to find him yet. The guy who did it. So that's that.
Yeah, funerals are rough.
Yeah. So the last and final question is there. What is your short term goal do you have for yourself, for the Roots Matter? And is there any way that we can help?
Well, I think you've helped by having me on. Get to talk to some people, hopefully some new subscribers will go over and join us.
Subscribe.
I think that both channels, your channels and the Roots Matter, both are channels that are worth people listening to. I want to see that grow. I'd like to get to 500.
Yep.
Also, I'd like to see the humanist group that I'm working on grow and thrive. I think that there's a good opportunity here for people to realize there's a safe space inside of a red dot in a blue state where people can find people that agree, and if not necessarily always agree, but definitely respect people as human beings. That's like that base level that I always thought was a natural, that we could always meet as human beings, but now we know that's not true. And that's definitely one of the things that my goal is to see that get off the ground, and to get that continued to be more established, and to see where that takes us, see where things go. Because I think that in spite of us being in a very trying time now, there are positive things happening. And I think sometimes it's important for us to remind people that in maybe not in spite of, because almost because of those trying times, that positivity is something that we need to make sure that we spread to other people.
Yeah, exactly. So we got to get 500. Detroit Atheist Queen 247. The Roots Matter. And then we have Tommy. Um, the humanity got to get to 500. I don't know if Layla's still here. We got to get her to 500. 500. Hook everybody up. Join, subscribe to all those channels.
Yep.
Now, sadly, when I leave this stream, I have to go to work. And I have to work to 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's my day. But I'm so glad you came on, and we had a pretty good conversation, I think.
I think so too.
So if you want to be a guest on my show, there's my email in the description. Or if you're on any social media, DM me on one of those. Until then, I will see you guys later. Have a good one. Oh, let me plug me. Sunday, Hell's Bells Helen. 3 o'clock is my show. 6 o'clock is her show. She got a double feature of us.
Hell yeah.
So, till then, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride.